Welcome to MarketPulse Pros and Pioneers. Each week, I talk with industry leaders on both marketing and entrepreneurship and business to find out all about their wins and failures in marketing right now. We'll hear all about successes and wins and what's fallen flat so that you can take that knowledge and implement it. Learn from the best, from the folks who've been there and done it all, as well as people just like you. Thanks for joining us. This is MarketPulse Pros and Pioneers.
Hello and welcome to this week's episode of MarketPulse Pros and Pioneers podcast. This week, I'm excited to announce our excellent guest, Kip Whelpley. Kip, welcome to the show. Thanks for joining us.
Thank you so much, Paul. I'm super excited to be here.
We must have spent the last 20 minutes trying to figure out how to get technology to play ball with us, right?
There have been some technical difficulties. Yeah. I'm almost waiting right now. I'm like, is it going to cut out? I don't want to move. I'm just going to stay real still.
If you're out there and you're on the fence about starting your own podcast, get some help to get started because even the pros have problems. A little bit of Kip's background. So Kip is the CEO at Kip Collaborations, who are an award-winning applied behavioural science company. Kip's known for his work in human-centered leadership, and he blends a background in psychology, theatre, and behavioural science to guide Fortune 100 executives, special forces, and Hollywood elites towards transformational leadership. That alone just sounds so exciting. I can't wait to dive into this. Kip has founded multiple successful ventures, including an international dance camp and a cannabis retail brand. His unique coaching approach integrates emotional intelligence, psychological safety, and leadership development, helping leaders inspire lasting change and high performance in their organizations. Wow, that is a write-up and a half. Impressive.
I wish I could take credit for it, but you got to get the pros to do that stuff. It makes me sound way cooler than I am, really, but it's okay. I'll go with it.
This is the art of the internet, right? Like, this is the art of the internet. At least you're not relying on AI to write your background for you. How do you get to a point where you're able to combine psychology, theatre, and business, Kip? What's your origin story? Please tell us.
It's a good question, and it wasn't initially on purpose. I'm just a classic kind of Renaissance brain, ADHD, all that kind of stuff wrapped in one. So and I had parents that were really encouraging to go try whatever you were interested in from the early set. But the long story short was the deep interest was on human beings and humaning. And when you put all of those things, when you say them apart, it seems really diverse. But the reality is kind of they're like the trifecta of human behavior, right? Like theater, you're learning all about how to connect with an audience and how to tell great stories and do that kind of thing. And then when you're in psychology, you're getting right deep into the mind and how it works and all of what makes us do what we do, why we choose what we do. And then you put that into business, and it's really kind of that catalyst piece that puts them all together. And every type of business that's out there that I work with, like I say, you're humaning all the time. So it worked out that was the perfect background for me to have to do what I'm doing.
And behavioral science is something that has been up and coming for quite some time. And some people have been using it for a lot of years, right? But I think in the mainstream, it's been quite unknown until the last sort of 5, maybe 10 years.
Hi, and thanks for joining us for the show. I'm Paul, founder here at Javelin Content Management. We specialize in getting ideas out of your head, down into video, and out to your social media through repurposing and efficient content strategies. If you want to find out how you can convert your ideal audience into paying customers, reach out to us, javelincontent.com, and I hope you enjoy the rest of the episode.
How did you get involved with behavioral science?
I lucked into it. I fell into it in a cool way. One of the professors that I was working with when I was finishing university, I was taking a teaching class and I wanted to go in and learn how to teach. And then, of course, because I was into theater, I was like, well, I'll take a class that teaches theater. That'll be cool. And the professor that I was working with, his main job was working in the world of behavioral science, and it was very much at the frontier at that time, and science hadn't caught up with it yet in the world of like being able to prove the theories that there were out there. So the stuff that he was doing seemed like magic. It was like almost like a mentalist. I was like, wow, like you mean if you do this, that'll cause this, and then people will then, I was like, oh, this is amazing. And so I really, I surrounded myself in his world and really dove into that world with him. And he just, because he was on the frontier edge, he had some of these wild clients, like amazing clients that I would have never had access to, that early on. And, like, again, special forces teams, Fortune 100 companies, the people that were really paying attention to this because they knew it worked. And there was very few people that were working in that world, especially the applied side. So I stayed with him and worked with him and trained. And the question was always like, do I go back in university and get masters and doctorates and things like that? And I was like, no, they're not teaching this in university. They're still trying to figure out how to map it and that kind of stuff. And like you said, only in the last 5-10 years has the science caught up, which is exciting for me because it's caught up to be able to do the studies, to do the scans, to do all of the pieces that are backing up what we've been doing for the previous 20, 30 years, to say that it works not just because we've been doing it, but because here it is in the brain. Here's the proof that we need as human beings to back it up. So yeah, I started early and just kept going with it and evolving as it evolved and my clients' needs evolved and kept going that way.
So I guess a lot of our audience who are watching this are small to medium enterprises, right? And if I'm them sat in the audience watching this, I'd be thinking, well, that's all well and interesting. And if I had lots and lots of money to throw around, then I'd definitely be getting involved in behavioral science. But what does this mean to me? And I think what I think you'd be able to share with the audience is just how accessible behavioral science is in this day and age for any size business, not just the larger enterprises who can afford consultants and entire teams of scientists and researchers. How does a small to medium enterprise start to understand behavioral science enough to be dangerous with it, in your opinion?
The world now that it's accepting it, it's understanding it. It's not a pseudoscience anymore, and I think small businesses, medium-sized businesses have the advantage. They're nimble. They can take and learn the practices and put them in play right away and beta test them and see what's happening and that kind of thing. Like, they can move really quickly. Whereas a lot of the clients that I have, there's a huge ramp of adoption and things that have to go through and that kind of stuff. So don't let the fact that that I'm working with really large companies or that you see those kind of people adopting it scare you. It's great that they're doing it, but really you have the advantage as the smaller guy getting into the field, and the advantage too, where like you can pick up some books, you can do some YouTube searches, you can do some research on your own, and you don't have to have a super expensive consultant and shape your whole thing to get started. You can get in there and start understanding why we do what we do and how that works, and understanding biases and heuristics and all of those different pieces that have big words, but essentially it's just, why the hell do we make the choices that we make? They don't make any sense. They're not logical. How do I navigate that? Right. And that's really what behavioral science is trying to make sense of the fact that we think we're rational, but we're not. So how do we do that? How do we live in that world? And small businesses, yeah, they're the ones that can really benefit from this, because like I said, they can play with little things, little tweaks here, little ideas and concepts, and put them right into play.
So should they approach it from a business perspective or from almost a scientific perspective, in your opinion? Should they be putting a hypothesis first and then testing that out?
I'm not sure if it's a prescribed way to do it, because it's up to the person, right? And again, and you're going to see that with a lot of behavioral science, it's like, it's about the human. Like, it's not blanket all the way across, right? We're all so complex and everything else. So that while it may seem political and wishy-washy, what I'm saying is like, it depends on you, who you are. But the point is that what side of it interests you, right? Like, is it the deep scientific side? cool, get into it. You know what I mean? If it is the like play and do something first and then experience it later, if that's what interests you, you've got to go with what your passion is. Myself, I like the blend of both, right? Like I get in there and I think, okay, here's my idea. This is what I want to do. This is how I want to do it. Now, what's some of the science that can support that or help me shape that? Get into that, and then I'm like, okay, I've got this little pile of mess here. I'm gonna let's try it. You know, throw it out there, and you pay attention to what the results are, right? And you run your own little experiments on what you do. So yeah, there's no right way to attack it. The right way to attack it is just to attack it. Get in there, get messy with it, and start playing with it. You know, listen to podcasts, listen to people who've done it. There's some fantastic thought leaders out there. You know, just get into it. It's really cool. And as we've talked before, it's up and coming for a long time, up and coming, but it's starting to gain some serious weight now because people are paying attention to how incredibly beneficial it is.
And then the other part of your background is in human-centered leadership. So for anybody who's not familiar with that, what's a whistle-stop tour of what that actually means? Because it kind of sounds a bit thought leadership, right? It sounds a bit buzzwordy, but what does it actually mean?
It is, and it's interesting because I for a long time have danced around with what it's called. And, you know, centered was probably a coin phrase, right, that made it as accessible as possible. But what it is realizing that we are human beings, and that's the type of leadership that you should be paying attention to. And the difference being is that there's a lot of, like, when you go get your MBA, when you're trained in leadership, when you're doing all that kind of stuff, they spend the majority of their time focusing on systems and tools and, you know, that kind of very analytical process. To managing people and leading people are very different things, right? So managing people, really, you're not managing people, you're managing tasks, right? And there is a very logical way to sort that out, right? And that's what we tend to lean towards in school, in teaching, because logic's easy to teach, right? And it's easy to learn. It's memory, right? Whereas human behavior, human leadership skills, human-centered leadership skills are all understanding the human being at the core and how to motivate them, how to drive them, how to, you know, access the empathy, the trust, the compassion, the connection, all of those pieces, which are fuzzy and hard to teach and hard to, you know, quantify. So that's the difference. I work on the humaning side and lean towards that, whereas a lot of other leadership consultants would work on the systems, analytics, all that kind of management side.
When you're talking about that, because it sparks a lot of memories of my own leadership experience, and I came very much from that background of being thrown in at the deep end without the education. I never got the MBA or the leadership qualifications, and you were just expected to sink or swim, and I swam,
Right.
often in spite of the support and tutoring that I was getting, as opposed to because of it. And it felt like something that organization really battled with for a long time. Was they were determined to try and make more good leaders in their business, and they went about that by teaching them to be good managers. And the good leaders still became good leaders in spite of all of that, but they could never seem to bottle that to create more of that. And the more they tried to follow the management route and teach people the management route, the more failure they created within the business, but couldn't really identify the root cause as to why. And actually, a lot of it stemmed from upper leadership. So it's interesting. It's a vicious circle.
Heard it so many times. It's so true, and it's indicative of the world that we live in. And I get it. It's because, I mean, the reality is humaning is hard. It's hard. We're complex. We all have different languages, and I don't mean verbal. I mean just subconscious languages that we understand and speak, and paying attention to that takes work, right? And you know, it takes practice. It's not something that comes instantly to people. Some people are like, yeah, natural born leader, natural, you know, and there's certain qualities that we all have that some lead more into being applicable to leadership. It could be coding. We have certain qualities that lead into coding. Like, it's that kind of thing is there for sure. But leadership itself is learned. It's the same as marketing. It's a learned skill. You just don't come out of the womb amazing at it, right? And unfortunately, Over time, we've always just kind of had it as a sink or swim type learning method, right? It's like, okay, you were great at doing this task, right? And this kind of thing. You're great in this field. So now what we want you to do is we want you to lead a whole bunch of people who are good at that. You're not doing the task anymore. You're leading people to do the task, right? Which is a totally different skill set, right? So I'm reiterating what you're saying, but it's one of those things where it's like, okay, so now you're leading people. So what does that look like, right? What is that?
Yeah.
Humans are hard. So how do we motivate them? Can you motivate a human? How do I keep them from, lynching me as a leader? How do there's so much, and then all your own insecurities and your own jam in there, right? So it's like, classic.
It's an example I see a lot in the sales environment. The best salesperson gets promoted as leader of the sales team. And then guess what happens? Chaos, because they're now responsible for their own targets that they originally had, plus everybody else's, and no idea how to motivate people other than to beat them with a big stick. It's a painful lesson. It's a painful lesson. So I wonder then, human-centered leadership, can you translate that into human-centered marketing?
It really is. It's the principles of leading people are totally transferable to leading your marketing campaign, because again, you're also leading people. And I think people overcomplicate it, really is what happens to it. When you are trying to connect with your team, you have to use empathy, trust, connection, right? Listening. You have to be really in tune with them. You have to be hearing what it is that they're saying in a way that is much deeper than the surface level. Well, how is that any different than the people that you're marketing to? It shouldn't be, if it is. And those kind of things too. Like, are you focused so heavily on the task, right, that you are forgetting about the human being who's doing the task? Take it to marketing. Are you so focused on the, advantages that or the little widgets and things that, the technical things that your product does or can, that kind of stuff? Or are you focused on the people who are going to be actually using or should want to use your product? Those are different focuses, right? One is going to attract a huge amount of people and create a following and a loyalty and a commitment, whether it's in leadership or marketing. And the other one is, it's interesting. I ramble on a little bit, but in the world of humaning, we're governed by two parts of the brain, and people probably heard this before, and it's common now that we know it, but we have our conscious mind and our subconscious. Our subconscious mind is what I talk about when I'm talking about humaning. Our conscious mind, it really only does about like 1 to 5% of stuff. It's really not that active. We pretend that it's the big one driving the bus, but it's not. The subconscious mind is the one that's making all the decisions. Your conscious mind just justifies the decisions you made, right? So like, even I see it all the time. We at the house too, and I do it too. I'm like, I just bought this new microphone. Why did you buy that? Well, because it has this, and this. I'm like, I have 3 microphones. I don't need another microphone, but it makes me feel good to have one, right? So I feel great. Something drove me. I had a need. I needed to get that dopamine hit and those other kind of things to buy the microphone, but I'll justify it using all of the facts, right? And the justification comes from your from your conscious mind, right? So if you learn to lead and market towards the subconscious, the real driver of everybody's behavior, you're going to win. If you're focusing on the conscious mind, that's not the one making all the decisions. It's just the one that justifies them, right? So that's the difference.
Yeah. Instead of selling the bells and whistles and the knobs and faders, just sell the experience of how good you're going to feel when you're on that microphone and you sound like a radio DJ.
Right? And then people will be like, yeah, that sounds great. This is good. And then that fills the need that's in here. And that's the difference. So are you filling the needs that are in your people that you're leading in here? Are you filling the needs that are in the people that you are attracting to your business in here? Right? And that's where it all comes from. And then learning to talk those different languages is part of the process as well.
I'm going to say this now, and I'm going to say it loud and clear. If you're in SaaS, you need to download this episode and play that back. Listen to it one more time. Stop selling your features and benefits. Stop telling people about the new project that you've just dropped. Stop telling people about all the stuff that's coming on your roadmap, because newsflash, nobody cares. What they care about is what they're going to be moaning about to their partner over dinner tonight, and how hard their life is and why they hate doing what they're doing and how their customers are really hard to reach. Make their life easier, tell them how they're going to feel, tell them what they're going to experience as a result of buying your products or services and how much easier their life's going to be and all their anxiety is going to be relieved. You'll do a much better job. I have that conversation so many times.
Fantastic point. And I have quite a few clients that are senior leaders in SaaS. And I think one of the big ones that I try to help them understand is because we're working on both things, right? Again, we're working on, they'll bring me on quite often for, actually it's a split. Quite often I'll be on the marketing side. They want to understand the marketing component of behavioral science, or they want to understand the leadership side, but the lessons are totally transferable across the two. And the one big one that I always push on is that worry about connection first, then content. If you think, and I'll explain this out for you a little bit, like in a meeting, we jump on meetings all the time and we jump on and we have like an awkward few minutes where people have small talk and then we jump into the subject right away, right? And we do that all the time. And leaders that take a few minutes, if not more than a few minutes at the very beginning of a meeting to really connect with everybody that's in that room, that's on the Zoom, to find a way to, and there's so many different ways to do that, to really connect with them, find out later on that the content that they had to put out and that everybody, you know, they wanted to reveal to everybody is absorbed in such a way different way. And it's so much more powerful. And they don't even realize that it was all about the connection first. You connected with them on a human level. You found out who they were as human beings. And then the content, they were like, yeah, well, I love you. You're amazing. I want to connect with you. So tell me whatever you want. I'm in, right? It's no different than marketing. Have you connected with your audience, or are you just pushing a whole bunch of stuff on them right away? They don't want to hear it. They want to connect with you first. And that's where that whole concept of like connecting with a brand and understanding the brand and everything else. They want to connect with you first to get a feel of who you are. It's in the words. They want to feel who you are. They want to get who you are. They want to have all of that internal stuff. Then you can sell them whatever you want because you already have their heart, right? And that's where it comes from. And it's very similar to what you do with your business, with the podcast and with that kind of piece. There's a connection there. Like I know you now in a way where I'm like, yeah, I really like you. You're a good guy. What is it that you do? Oh, you do that? Oh, well, I actually kind of need that. You're the person I'm going to go to for that. And that's how that's going to be, right? So having those relationships and those connections before the content is invaluable. It's a mind shift and it's a mindset shift, but it's one that is crucial across both areas.
It's fundamental. And it works for internal meetings as well as customer meetings, right?
Massively.
Networking meetings. You cannot get into the meat of a conversation until you've made, if it's possible, the people, it's not always possible, if you've made the people in that call smile.
Yep.
When you've smiled, you've connected. Then you can go into other things. If they haven't smiled, you're not connected. If they never smile, big red flags, big warning sign. These people are not interested. They've got other motives, other ideas, and you're not top of the pile.
Exactly.
And you've got to work so hard on that connection. But you're absolutely right. And I think these days more than ever, people want that connection on their own terms even. And that's why video is so important, because people want to do the research first. They only want to come to you when they can't answer a question that's a game stopper for them. It's something that they kind of get past. And if you can't do it, then they can't move forward with you. So they come to you because they've answered all their other questions and that one or two questions remain. And if you can knock those two questions down, they're your customer. They've already decided they want to work with you. That's where everybody needs to get to. But it's hard to share that, to be that vulnerable and transparent and organic freely. Like you said it, it's a mindset shift, right? It's hard to shift your perspective from, I need to put this video out to sell things, to, I need to put this video out to connect with people because then I can sell things. It's really simple when you say it like that. But that's all it is.
But and there's a piece to that too, where it's creating a video. I mean, we had trouble right at the beginning of this with technology, right? Like there's certain barriers in creating a video that jam us up in our heads and make it, you know, like is my, you know, like, how do I look? You know, is my background okay? Is the technology I'm using? And then you get into all these technical things. And by the time you're there, you're like, okay, still down the technical road. What am I going to talk about? Where we're at? And it's like, okay, it's almost like you have to take a step, right? And like, okay, you've got your world set up. And the reality is that people aren't that fussed about the technical things. They're really not. Um, but the video is so powerful because it allows you to access people in a way that's going to get a lot more of their senses than just an image or a voice or anything else. You're getting the best you can sans being in person, right? Because again, our subconscious mind is going to pick up on all of the little things that are in there. So the big point is, if you are genuine and authentic when you do your thing, that's the goal. Not selling your product, not anything else, but just talk to people, talk with people, and be genuine and authentic. However that is for you, just do that. There's 8 billion people in the world. You're going to find your tribe, right? So don't fuss and try to make everybody your best friend. Just be you. And the people that will love and flock to you will find you. And then you can go from there to then the selling part and everything else.
I love it. It's a beautiful way of putting it. A lovely expression. Thank you for that. As I ask all of our guests then, what's one marketing strategy or tactic that you wish business owners would just quit doing? What really grinds your gears?
Again, I think, I mean, the simple one is going crazy and floating all of the, widgets and baubles and, things that your product does and everything else and that kind of stuff. Don't go there right away. People will come, like once their heart is into it, they'll come looking for that. And they can, as long as you have a place where you can find it, that's good, and that kind of thing. That's why Amazon has reviews first and then the technicalities below, right? Like people want to be connected and they want to feel safe about what it is that you're selling. I really want people to lean into the behavioral science side because it's so incredibly powerful. Start to understand why people do what they do and why they make the choices that they make, and really dive into that and lean into that idea of the fact that human beings need the connection first, and stop trying to just, repetitively put out an ad all the time or repetitively do one thing or another, like pay attention to it. And the other side of that too is that start to shift the data you're looking at. And I say that because a lot of the marketing that we have follows data that is incredibly analytical on the side of the widgety bobbly side, right? What product aspects did they like? What product? That's okay. That's okay to look at that, but then go deeper. Why did they like it? What about the human center, the core, did that fill, right? Not some of that. They like it because it turns left and it does, really, that's technical. What is it about it that they actually really got out of that, and find that, and then start speaking to that, right? Get to those kind of places and those conversations and understanding the human side of it as much as you can. That would be my wish.
I remember doing very technical 90-minute demos in my previous role, and we were a big fan of behavioral science and behavioral design as part of that SaaS software that we were selling. And I remember gloating over the behavioral science aspects of that because it was so much easier to connect people to the why and the emotions. And, like, look at these buttons. I don't care what the buttons do, but look how rounded they are. Isn't that easy on the eye? Now notice that none of our boxes have square edges because it's nice and easy on the eye. Do you know why that is? Because eyes, because roundness, because, babies are attracted to round, like we like faces. We like, it makes us feel familiar and calm and at ease. And you'd see people's face go, oh, these guys have really thought about this. And we had, to be fair, we'd spent a lot of money on that behavioral design aspect of it. And quite often, that's what used to get us down to the next demo, to the next level, to the next conversation. Ultimately, we'd end up talking about the features and widgets because we'd get to the technical people who that's all they cared about because that was their day-to-day stuff. But at the beginning, it was all about, look, we did all these interesting, cool things, not the things that you think we're going to talk about. We'll never mention AI, but we're going to talk about, the colors, the palette that we use, because isn't this calm? Isn't it feel nice? Yeah, actually it does. You're right. It feels pretty, I like it.
It's really interesting when you say that too, because there's a piece that you may not even have realized that they were probably paying attention to even more than that. When you said to them, like, oh, those guys really put some thought into this. That's probably the one that won. It's like, oh, they cared enough to actually dig into this. They care about us. We want to work with people that care about us. You know, like that's, now you're getting to the root of it, right? It's like, yeah, you're right. You're right about those things. You know, all those pieces that you're pointing out, all the science behind that is really right. But oh my gosh, you actually give a crap about what we're talking about, and you've put some time and energy into this, and you're speaking to it with passion and with conviction. That has attracted me to you, right? Now I am like, now I am trusting you as a human, and keep going, keep telling me more about what's going on. You know, like this is authentic. This guy's really into this. I want to know about it, right? That's even further down in the whole like root of where it comes from, right? So those are those pieces.
As opposed to putting a bullet point on the website that says, we really value our customers.
Yep.
Oh, okay. Right. Every other SaaS business in the world, right?
And that's a given, right? You should. Everybody should. That's not a big win or a big, product. That's just, you should. I don't want to work with anybody that doesn't. So yeah, it's an assumed, right? So
Kip, we could talk about behavioral science, psychological safety, dare I say NLP, all sorts of things for hours and hours and hours.
We could.
Unfortunately, we try and keep the episodes to a limit where people will actually watch the whole thing. So I'm going to draw it here, and you're welcome to come back on the show. We're going to dive into this, and I've actually got a guest coming up in a couple of weeks who is a behavioral design expert that we used in my previous job, and that we took advice from. So
very cool. I'm looking forward to that.
Babs Crane's episode. You'll love. She's got more degrees than I have, like teeth. Like, it's interesting.
Awesome.
She's so talented.
Cool.
If people are interested to learn more about yourself, Kip, and they're inspired by some of the things that you've talked about today, how can they reach you best?
I think the website's easy. It's kip@kipjon.com is the email. kipjon.com is the website, KIPJON. Or LinkedIn. LinkedIn's good too. I like to, again, I just like to connect with cool humans. So feel free to reach out, and you don't have to put a message in there or anything else. It's just, let's connect and chat and jam. And the more people you know, the more you learn, right? And the more you connect with humanity. So I'm all about it. I love it.
Just not the people that write, send me connect, dear, at the bottom of the post, no?
Yeah, well, you know, there's that too. I still accept the blind marketing. I worked as a BDS or BDM for a while, and I get it. They have a job to do. I'll accept their LinkedIn requests as well, but I may not always answer back the blind requests. But yeah,
love it. Thank you very much for being a fantastic guest.
Thank you.
Fantastic week.
Excellent.
Thank
we'll
you
talk to you
for
soon.
coming along and watching and listening. We'll see you next week on MarketPulse Pros Pioneers. Bye-bye.
Bye-bye.
Thanks for joining us for today's show. I hope you enjoyed it. If you'd like to feature on a future show, or you've got some ideas for folks who would make a great guest, please drop us a line. Contact details are in the show notes, and I'd love to hear from you. Your host today was me, Paul Banks, founder at Javelin Content Management. Here at Javelin, we specialise in helping busy business owners just like you to repurpose video content, taking all the stress and tech problems away and turning your long-form video into literally hundreds of pieces of content without breaking the bank. We describe it as getting ideas out of your head into video and out to your socials. If you want to launch your personal brand, become the vendor of choice for your audience, or maximise your sales revenue impact, we'd love to hear from you. Join us next Wednesday for the next episode, and don't forget to subscribe and give us a review. Our podcast is only possible with your continued support.